Multisig or multi-signature wallets can add an additional dimension of security to your Bitcoin holdings by removing single points of failure. However, the interfaces by which we can create multisig wallets have arguably been lacking historically, at least for the average user, and particularly when we consider collaborative multisigs involving participants from geographically separated areas. And that is why in today's video, I am very excited to take a look at Nunchuk, which provides a novel solution to this problem. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another video. My name is Ian Major. I'm an entrepreneur, Bitcoin pleb, and all-around raging capitalist, and I'm excited to dig into Nunchuk today. This has been on my list for quite some time, and it is directly as a result of your feedback and input on different video topics that you'd like to see. So today we are finally delivering. Nunchuk is an open source wallet that supports both single sig and multi-sig, but I think what makes it really unique is the end-to-end encrypted chat system that is built directly into Nunchuk, which allows participants that are geographically separated to easily form a collaborative multi-sig wallet together. Very, very cool stuff. And so as part of today, I'm going to start just with a brief motivation for why this is important and why what Nunchuk is offering is incremental to what I think we've seen in other solutions in the past. And then we're going to dig into the nuts and bolts and go through a tutorial from start to finish. So you're not going to want to miss a thing. For those returning to the channel, welcome back, my friends. As always, it is a pleasure to have you. And for those new to the channel, I welcome you as well. If you like this type of content, I invite you to consider subscribing and join us in our merry gang in cyberspace. I cover all manner of Bitcoin related content, including a whole slew of tutorials on how to acquire Bitcoin, how to secure your Bitcoin, privacy best practices, running your own node, and more. You want it, I cover it, and today's video is a great example of that. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into a brief motivation for today, and then we'll get further into the meat of things. All right, so what is the motivation here? Now, I want to really focus today's video on a multi-sig setup. I will briefly show how to create a single sig or single signature wallet within Nunchuk. But again, today's focus and the goal that we're working towards is the creation of a collaborative multi-sig wallet with participants that could be geographically separated anywhere on Earth, whatever the case may be. And so for those who may be a little bit newer to multisig entirely, like what is this? Why is it important? Well, it essentially helps form a Bitcoin wallet that requires multiple signing devices or multiple signatures in order to spend the funds out of that wallet. And so you can imagine, even if you've taken all precautions, you've written your seed phrase, you've chiseled it into titanium plate so it's protected against fire, you've got a gnarly passphrase that you've added to the wallet, you've done all the right things, but at the end of the day, that's still a single point of failure. If someone were to get their hands on your seed phrase and passphrase in this case, they would be able to steal your funds. And so multisig adds an additional layer to all of that. So the example that we'll walk through in today's video is going to be a 2 of 2 multisig, meaning there are 2 possible signers and both of which are required to actually send funds out of this wallet. But you could get more creative. You could have a 2 of 3, meaning there are 3 total signers, 2 of whom need to sign in order to spend the funds, and that can go all the way up to a max of 15 possible signers with all sorts of configurations along the way. And so you can start to think of some use cases here, right? Like one could just be a more secure setup for you yourself. But the other dimension I'm more interested in the case of this video is maybe you run a business, right? And you have, a founding team that's spread across the world and you have some sort of a Bitcoin treasury as part of your company. And so you may say any 3 of 5 company officers is required to spend Bitcoin out of this multisig. Completely different example could perhaps be, you collaboratively custodying Bitcoin amongst your family members, right? And so the same sort of thing would go and be true. And so Nunchuk, as we can see, bills itself as this very kind of secure yet usable Bitcoin wallet, particularly for collaborative multisig. And so you can see some of the motivation. 4 out of 21 million Bitcoin have been lost forever due to the loss of private keys, forgotten passwords, theft, or fraud. If you leave your Bitcoin on exchanges, they are not yours. That is absolutely right. If you use a Bitcoin wallet with a single key, losing that key means losing all your Bitcoin. Now, It is important to note that cryptographically, like a single key is still outrageously, outlandishly secure, like insanely secure. And that's especially true if you add a passphrase. Although, as I often recommend, I wouldn't recommend going crazy with the passphrase because it could be easy to kind of mistakenly input it, depending on what interface you're using. But the gist of this is absolutely right, that, there's been a lot of Bitcoin that has been lost because people lose their private keys or their seed phrase, or they don't write things down. And so imagine a situation in which you have a 2 of 3 multisig and you completely lose one of the keys. Well, that's okay. You still have the remaining 2 that will allow you to spend those funds out. And so as we can see here, these are some of the key features that Nunchuk sort of brands itself around. This first one, multi-device sync, is the crown jewel in my opinion. I have done a whole video using Electrum, which was the best way I knew how to create a collaborative multisig with participants who are geographically dispersed. The benefit of the Electrum approach is that it requires no trust whatsoever in any particular entity or third party, meaning you still will need to transfer information amongst participants in the kind of Electrum method, but you can choose how to do that. You could do an encrypted chat app such as Signal. You could do it in all sorts of different ways. And so it is worth noting that while Nunchuk's solution is an end-to-end encrypted chat app, and they've even done demos of like what that data actually looks like, such that like what would a spying server be able to see? And the answer is nothing. But it is still true that you kind of have to trust Nunchuk's implementation of it. Now, it is all open source, and so I just wanted to mention that and mention some of those differences. Again, check out the Electrum video, and I think if you do that, you will particularly value what Nunchuk has brought to the table because it is a very clean experience, as you will see shortly. They also, as you can see, support all sorts of different configurations. They've got air gap support, so you can use devices like Coldcard or Foundation Devices Passport, or you can connect your own node to this. So super impressive. And even most recently, they've been doing a lot of support, building support around NFC or near field communication. So these are things like the tap signer or SATS card. I recently did a whole video on the latest Mark IV Coldcard model, which has NFC functionality embedded. And so I do think that is very much a direction that some of the leading wallet providers are building towards, and so that is cool to see. Suffice it to say, you can tell which projects are really active and which aren't, and Nunchuk absolutely falls in the former category. They are rolling out functionality at a very healthy pace. And so in addition to having just a world-class set of features and functionality, they also have this highly unique feature of the end-to-end encrypted chat that allows participants from anywhere in the world on different devices to collaborate together and create these multisigs. So with that bit of motivation and context, let's go ahead and jump into the actual meat of things. All right, so we are on nunchuk.io. I will, of course, link that along with any other important URLs in the description down below for your reference. But we can kind of take a scroll through and see some of the different features that we were just discussing, as well as here at the bottom, you can see those major hardware devices that are supported. Foundation Devices Passport is not on here, but given the standards that Nunchuk supports, that should be feasible. Just a quick comment there. And then we see the different download links for different operating systems. Do take note that it is still technically in beta. And, if you're very technically minded, you can alternatively build from source. They've got their GitHub open source repository linked here. And there are also some instructions for verifying the downloads on desktop. And so this is a good practice to try and get in the habit of doing at a high level. If you've never done this, this is basically trying to cryptographically verify that what you've downloaded from the internet is indeed what you expect it is, and it is from whom you expect it is from. So I'm going to do what I can in this regard as part of today. Don't sort of stress too much about this, but again, it is a good practice to try and get in the habit of doing. So step one, I will go ahead and download the appropriate files for my operating system, in this particular case, Windows. and you can see it is downloading as a zip file. And so what I will also do is open up the instruction page for the signed builds so we can do a bit of verification. Now, assuming you're doing this on Windows, that does presuppose that you already have GPG4Win downloaded and set up. So this can be accessed at gpg4win.org. And so when you download that, in addition to some different commands that you can run in something like your command line, it also gives you the handy GUI interface for verifying file integrity through what is called Cleopatra. You can see I'm hovering over the icon in my kind of toolbar down below. I'm just going to do the quick and dirty command line version in this particular case, but I have done prior videos where I've gone through Cleopatra. It can be a bit clunky, but it is a useful alternative to have in addition to the command line route. But you do, to be clear, need that in either case. Let's come back. So we've got our zip file downloaded, and we want to go ahead and also grab this release signature. So I can simply click on that and it will download as this SHA-256 sums.asc file. And so let's go ahead and get the command line up. So here we go. You can do this in PowerShell on Windows as well. So I'm going to use the command cd just to get into my downloads so that it's pointing at these files that I now have downloaded. So the Nunchuk as well as the signature file. And I'm just going to literally grab this command and copy it directly into the command prompt, and we'll hit enter, and it has imported a public key, and we can see some context that we would generally expect to see. There's Nunchuk binary release signing key, and if we really want, we can also come over and hit release key and have a peek at some of the information. I can see that it indeed aligns here, which is good. And you could even, if you really wanted to, right click on this where it says pub and get the full entire PGP public key block. If, for example, you wanted, you could save this off as a file or copy this entire thing if you're using Cleopatra as a method. But in any case, we have successfully imported the public key from Nunchuk. And basically what we want to do is verify that the signature file provided indeed came from this public key. And so to do that, we'll actually come back to this checksum step, but we can basically run the command here. And indeed we can see signature made. It is a good signature from the binary release signing key. So this is good. We're basically confirming that yes, indeed, the signature did in fact come from the public key that we've got associated with Nunchuk. Now there is this checksum. I'm not really sure why it's pointing at the signature file. Like what I've often seen in other cases is that you can run the SHA-256 algorithm on the actual file that you intend to, install, to generate a hash that you can then compare to one that is noted on a separate website from the one that you downloaded it from, right? That's another good verification step. In this case, they don't really list it here, and this is not a Windows command, so I'm not really sure what to do in this case. You can run something like the following on Windows, so it's actually cert util -hash file. And then we would grab basically the file name here, copy that in, .zip, and we would put SHA-256 at the end, and we can run that, and we can get this hash, right? So this is the hash generated by running SHA-256 on the Windows here, but I'm just not sure what to compare that to. Usually you have that listed alongside each of their releases. So not sure if I'm missing something obvious here. Maybe one of you more technically savvy watching this can point it out. But in any case, we've done sort of enough to make me feel comfortable. And so let's go ahead and proceed with the rest of the process. So we're going to come up and extract all. We'll let it do its thing. All right, terrific. So we've extracted the contents. You can obviously put this in a different location if you wish, other than your downloads. But we basically want to go into Nunchuk-Windows and open up the shortcut as you can see here. Windows will often throw this, so we can say more info and hit run anyway. And we have got Nunchuk. So this is great. You can, of course, pin this to your taskbar if you want, or again, put the shortcut in some logical location where you can easily find it again. But we are ready to get started, where private messaging meets the safest Bitcoin wallet. Get started. And so this is interesting. I actually really like that they kind of dump you in guest mode to start. Previously, I think the flow was actually presenting you with a location in which to sign up, basically for an account using an email. Now you could skip that step and then just not be able to use the collaborative chat feature where you can set up the collaborative multisig with a completely separate person. I suspect they probably got feedback and were like, wait, this is weird. Why am I putting a email in? So anyway, suffice it to say, they dump you in as this guest mode. And as it says, guest mode allows you to create keys and wallets without an account. Please consider the following before using. Keys and wallets created in guest mode are stored locally. They will not be removed until you manually delete them or uninstall the app. However, messaging and collaborative multi-sig wallets are currently not available in guest mode. And so seeing as that is really the kind of crown jewel of what we want to achieve today, we will be setting up an account, but do note that you can use this forever in guest mode. You just wouldn't be able to use the collaborative multi-sig wallets. I'm not sure if they'll change that sometime in the future. Like you can imagine authenticating even with like a lightning address. That would be really cool to have the kind of peer-to-peer chat functionality without having to kind of create an account. But in any case, let's go ahead and say got it. And before we jump into stuff, let's actually come down and select this here, and we'll go to sign in. And so this is what I'm referring to by the prior flow that I believed it looked like. And so in our case, we're actually going to go ahead and indeed put in an email address and a password. Again, I know that sounds weird and feels weird, but this is strictly for the purpose of the collaborative multisig functionality, because as you can see, we use email as the user ID for collaborative wallet and interpersonal messaging feature. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in and we'll be right back. Okay, excellent. So I basically signed up using a email and it sends you a temporary password. You then change the temporary password and then it dumps you actually in this kind of direct messaging section where we can add another contact and create the collaborative multisig. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So let's actually come back to where we were previously. And then the final kind of setup piece we can do is if you are running your own node, you can connect that to your Nunchuk wallet. Again, I've done a whole playlist on what it even means to run your own node, why would you want to do that, as well as some different tutorials on how to actually do that from scratch, whether it's building your own node, etc. And so for those of you who happen to be running Umbrel, I am going to attempt to connect my Umbrel node to Nunchuk. And so what I'll do is I'll come back down to the bottom left here and I'll hit settings. Now there are other things, as you can see. You can change the denomination. Maybe we'll do Satoshis instead of BTC. There's some different account settings, right? This is where you can change your password, other kind of developer settings. What we want is the network settings. And so coming to my Umbrel, what I can do is go to connect wallet. By the way, this is basically what you would do to connect your Umbrel to really any other wallet. You would come down and select Nunchuk wallet, at least the desktop version, gives you this handy list of instructions for how to connect your Umbrel node to Nunchuk wallet. So let's get started. And what we first need to do is add a key, which will then allow us to create a wallet. Now, again, my ultimate goal here is to create a collaborative multi-sig with a completely different individual, and we're going to do that in real time. But you can also, of course, use Nunchuk for single sig wallets, etc. And so let's go ahead and add a new key. And as you will see, we've got two main categories. So we can create a hardware key that is associated with a offline hardware signing device. As you will see, even within that, there's two categories, wired. So this would be a device like a Ledger or a Trezor that you plug directly into your laptop. Or you can also do an air-gapped key, such as something like Keystone or Cold Card. Now, I've done a number of tutorials on these various devices, at least for Ledger, Trezor, Cold Card, as well as Foundation Devices Passport. I am, for purposes of this video, going to use my Ledger device, but you can find other tutorials for other hardware signing devices. And while that's not necessarily going to show adding those signing devices and connecting it and pairing it with Nunchuk, but the instructions are exactly the same. So you can find, for example, a recent tutorial I did end-to-end with the latest Mark IV model for Cold Card, and I show how to pair that up with something like Sparrow Wallet. And so the instructions of how to export the kind of XPub or extended public key from the Cold Card device to Sparrow Wallet would be exactly the same process as for Nunchuk. So just a quick comment there. And so for purposes of this collaborative multisig that we're building towards, I will be using my Ledger device, so a hardware signing device on desktop. And then we will also show an example of what the software key looks like, and I'll do that on the mobile device. So let's go ahead and hit add hardware key. And it says, please ensure to do the following. Number one, initialize the device key. That means just setting the device up, period. And so again, check out the link I will provide in the description down below for how to do that with, in this case, Ledger that I will be doing. And then it says connect and unlock the device. So I will go ahead and plug my Ledger in, as you can see here. And this will come up. I'll put in my PIN code. Be right back. All right, so our PIN is in and we are in our Bitcoin app on Ledger. So let's go ahead and hit continue. It had that Trezor entry. I was doing a little bit of testing prior to this. But once I've hit refresh devices, I can see my Ledger and I can see the fingerprint associated with that. Sometimes if it hasn't unlocked properly, it'll say locked instead of this kind of fingerprint. But that is what we want to see. So let's go ahead and give this a name, maybe something like Ledger 1. And we'll go ahead and hit add key. It says Nunchuk is connecting to your device. And so what's pretty cool here is that it tests a signing message. So it says, please wait and confirm the action on your key device. Now, for some of these hardware devices, it's going to come up as like, what is this, right? Because this is kind of an unusual thing that it's doing. And so you'll even see the derivation path is unusual. Reject if you're not sure, approve derivation path. So we will hit approve. And it's also displaying this address, which doesn't mean a whole lot. Let's go ahead and hit approve as well. And we will go ahead and sign the message. And so Nunchuk is now basically importing our different extended public keys that will allow us to create different wallets. All right, so there we go. We have got our key set up. And so you can run this health check periodically to ensure that it is still properly paired up with Nunchuk. So that's kind of cool. But we are all good here for now. We can go ahead and hit confirm and close. And we now see our key here on the left-hand side. And so I can always, again, come back to this menu. I can change the name for it in different things like that. So that is great. And so indeed, it says, looks like you have added a signer. Do you want to add a Bitcoin wallet? So we could certainly do that if we want. We could hit add new wallet here, or you can always do so from the plus box or from the plus icon up near where it says wallets. So let's go ahead and hit add new wallet. And again, we could say something like Ledger test wallet. We can do standard wallet. It's got this one-time escrow wallet, which is also interesting. And then it does give you the option to choose a different address type. We do have support for Taproot already, which is very cool. We'll leave this with native SegWit for now. And let's go ahead and hit next for the key configuration. And so we would basically choose from our existing set of keys, which only has one, of course, at this stage. So we'll say Ledger, we'll say assign to wallet, and we will go ahead and say required number of signers is simply 1. And so as you can see, it says this is single sig. So it's a single signature wallet. We can review the wallet and create it. And then it creates for you this wallet configuration file. This is pretty nice. So this is not, to be clear, the seed phrase or your private keys of any kind, right? That should be written down safely, completely separate to any of this. But this does have some useful information around derivation paths and different things like that that are going to be useful in particular for multi-sig setups. So I'm going to I'll do this later because we'll come back to it as we're setting up the actual multi-sig, but that is pretty nice. And so it says your wallet has been created. I can close out of this. In the situation in which you want to export this wallet perhaps to something else, you can do that with a variety of different options. So that is nice. And indeed, we do see Passport coming up. So that's cool at the bottom. Just validation of what I suspected was true is that they support Passport, so that's very cool. And so we can exit out of this, and as you can see, we've got our wallet now created. So step one, we created the key, and then we created the wallet. Now you may say, well, that feels a little duplicative. Why couldn't we just create the wallet all in one fell swoop? And it is because of the variety of ways in which people can create wallets like Multisig, which would naturally include multiple keys. So it's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship. And this functions just as you would expect, right? You can receive funds. So I could go to receive and use this nicely marked unused address. So that is always a best practice. Don't reuse addresses. So it helps you kind of rotate through those, which is nice. You can always generate a new address as well. And so I could scan this QR code or copy the address and send some sats using whatever other wallet that I may wish. You may also wish to verify this on the device. That can also be a nice step to ensure that this is paired up correctly. And so we hit the verify on device button, and it says, please check the address on your device. And indeed, we can see that it is correct. So just kind of scan through this quickly. And so great, that looks all right. We can approve that. So that is good. That is, again, always a good step to verify that the expected address that it's pulling in Nunchuk aligns with what your hardware signing device is also telling you. You can also, if you were to receive some sats to this wallet, you could just as easily send them out with an interface that looks something like this. So you would basically, you could paste in an address, or you could hit the scan button, which would open, in this case, your computer's camera in order to scan a address, and then you would put in the amount appropriate. You can also send to multiple destinations, which is nice. But again, we are going to kind of skip over this a little bit because, again, our main purpose is to do the collaborative multi-sig. I did want to show what a single sig wallet looks like, and it is largely as you would hope and expect. Now, let's say this was an air-gapped setup, so it wasn't necessarily the case that you just kind of wire it in and it connects. You can always do things like partially signed Bitcoin transaction files, and this is also where you can save that wallet configuration backup file as well. So we've set up our key on the desktop side under what is basically user Rager in this case. So there I am. Now let's set things up on my mobile app. So I'm going to pretend like I am a completely separate individual. At no point will my phone be connected to my computer, but using the end-to-end encrypted chat system that's built into Nunchuk, we will see how two users can collaborate. All right, so here I am in Nunchuk. As you can see, it is the same exact kind of message that we got started with on desktop. So I will go ahead and hit get started. And similarly, it dumps us in the kind of guest mode, if you will. Slightly different kind of setup, as you can see along the bottom. But the first thing we're going to do is go down to the account tab, and we are going to create an account. So it says do more with Nunchuk. Create an account or sign in to take advantage of our advanced features such as collaborative wallets and encrypted messaging. So we are indeed going to do that. We'll go ahead and hit create an account, and I am going to put in some information here and create an account. And so I've created the account. Again, it will send you a temporary code that you can put in and then change your password, and it gives you the option to turn on notifications if you want. That can be important because it'll notify you when you receive new contact requests. So let's indeed go ahead and turn them on. We'll hit allow. So let's go ahead and set up a key. So I'm going to go ahead and create a key. Now it's pretty cool that they support NFC keys. So this is things like if you've seen Tap Signer or even the Sats card, I believe, would be examples of how you can basically add an NFC key. Maybe I'll do that in a future video. And then similarly, you can do an air-gapped key. Now notice the language there that they're using, and it also says this at the top. If you need to add a wired key, i.e. a hardware signing device that needs to be connected through a wire, such as a Ledger or Trezor, please do so on the desktop app. So do be aware of that. But in our case, we'll just go ahead and add a software key. And so importantly, this says the private key is stored on this device. Please keep your device safe to prevent your key from being compromised. great. We can create a new seed, or we can recover a different seed and import that into this, but that is fine. We'll go ahead and create the new seed. And so we are going to write down our seed phrase, and we will be right back. As we can see, it quizzes us a little bit on the different words. That is fine. And so we can give our key a name. So let's just say hotkey 1, something like that. And we can put in an optional passphrase, which crudely serves as a 25th word. This is definitely a good call. For demo purposes, I'm just going to say I don't need a passphrase, but again, highly, highly recommended. And so we have got our hotkey that has been added. We can exit out and come back, and it says you don't have any wallets yet, but that is okay, because as a next step, we are going to create a collaborative multi-sig wallet. So let's come back to desktop as well. And what we are going to do is we're going to come all the way over to this chat icon, and we're going to hit add contact. And so I'm going to input my other email, basically. So pretending like this is, my friend's email. And so it says your contact request has been sent. And as we can see, we just had the little one pop up with our messages. And so there it is. We can see our contact request. There is Rager. Rager is requesting contact with us, so we can go ahead and approve that. And we have success. Say something like, hey, and there you go. So you can see that this is now an end-to-end encrypted chat conversation, basically. And you can furthermore see on both the mobile and on desktop, it says, would you like to create a collaborative wallet? And that is exactly what we want to do. So let's go ahead and hit create a collaborative wallet. And we're going to call it collab multisig 1. We will indeed leave the defaults for now. And we'll go ahead and hit continue. It has assumed that we intend to do 2 total signers, which is exactly right. And so we're going to require that both of those signers are necessary in order to spend funds out of this collaborative wallet. So there's 2 possible signers, and both of them are necessary. Now you can imagine doing this with a third friend, and so maybe it's any 2 of the 3. So you can change these configuration however you want, all the way up to 15 signers. And so let's go ahead and continue with our 2 of 2 multisig. And we'll go ahead and hit continue again. And so I can now see that it's reflected in the chat of pending keys. And so in the case of desktop, I can go ahead and add my ledger key. And if I had more keys on my desktop, I could, of course, choose amongst those. But let's go ahead and choose the ledger signing key. I'll hit continue. And so it says pending 1 key to be assigned. Rager added the key to collab multisig 1. And so I'll go ahead and hit view config on my mobile screen. So I can go to continue to assign keys, and I will select, of course, my hotkey. So let's assign the keys, and there we go. So I have now added the second of 2 keys. We've done this on 2 completely separate devices. And so I will now go ahead and hit finalize wallet. It says pending finalization, and we can go ahead and finalize the wallet. Excellent. So we've created collab multisig 1, and it says please back up your wallet. You might also need to register it with your device before you can spend money. We'll say do it now. And we will go ahead and indeed save this wallet configuration file. Again, this is particularly important and helpful for multisig. In most cases, you'd be able to recreate your multisig by simply having the private keys of your respective signing kind of devices. In this case, the seed phrase that we wrote down for our software key on mobile, and then the ledger seed phrase that we originally wrote down when we very first set up the ledger device. But this has some other helpful information to ensure that for multisig purposes specifically, we've got the right derivation path and other pieces of info. So I'll go ahead and hit save file. And we'll just save that here for now. All right, so this has been created. We can come back to wallets and see that it has. And so let's go ahead and receive some funds. So again, I could always use that quick receive on the top right, but we can, you can also see this and again, generate new addresses if needed. And so I'm just gonna pop quickly over to a different Bitcoin mobile wallet. This is Blue Wallet. which supports both on-chain and Lightning. One of my favorite mobile wallets. I've done a whole tutorial on Blue Wallet, so check that out if you are so curious. But again, I just want to show the full process. So I am going to hit send, and I will scan the QR code and confirm that that is correctly pulled in the address of my multisig, and it indeed has. And so let's pick a number of sats to send. Maybe we can send something like 25,000. Let's go ahead and make the fee rather aggressive so we can get this done a little bit quickly. And we'll go ahead and hit send. We'll hit send now. And so that should be on its way. And indeed, you can see that it just rotated the address through, so it now has one address. And so we can see that also confirmed here in the list of transactions, pending confirmation. So let's give this a few moments to confirm, and we will be right back. All right, so as we can see, we've got a confirmation on our transaction. So we've got our 25,000 sats in our collaborative multisig. Now let's demonstrate how to actually send this out. So again, either individual could have received funds by providing an address to some other actor, right? But in order to send it, of course, we will need both participants collaborating by providing their respective signatures. Let's initiate that this time from mobile. So I've got this chat with Rager. I'll come out of that momentarily. And let's go to wallets. Here's my collaborative multisig. And so let's go ahead and send. We'll go ahead and send all of it. Continue. And I will go ahead and copy an address from my Blue Wallet. So we'll just send it right back. There we go. And we'll get a quick playback of the amount. And all of that looks good. So we'll go ahead and hit confirm and create the transaction. And now we can see that we've got this pending signature. We'll hop back to messages, and we'll see that that information has been populated in our chat. And I can similarly come over on desktop and see the same thing. So let's go ahead and hit continue to sign on mobile. And we see our hotkey. So we'll go ahead and hit sign. And so that's that, right? I mean, that was simple. I had my software key. I didn't even have a passphrase on it. So again, that one's pretty straightforward. Let's come back to our chat. And so now we need Rager to apply the other signature. And so I will go ahead and hit sign transaction, and it will say, please plug in and unlock your device. We can rescan because it is. And we can go ahead and hit sign, and it will present us with the prompt on our actual device to do so. So there we go. We've got review output 1. We see the expected amount less of minor fees. And we indeed see the expected address. And so we'll go ahead and hit accept. Confirm transaction. We've got the fees. Yes, we can go ahead and hit accept and send. And we can now see that both are synced. We've got both signatures applied. And so on either screen, either one of us can hit start broadcasting or continue to broadcast. So we'll do that on desktop. And the transaction has been broadcast successfully. So we can come back and similarly see the pending confirmation and the transaction has been sent. So very, very cool stuff. I think that is a humongous deal to have this end-to-end encrypted chat functionality built directly into the app. So just to put a point of emphasis around backups for multisig, because this is important, again, the expectation would be that for each signing device that you have, you obviously would have the seed phrase or recovery phrase securely written down somewhere, right? Like that goes without saying, but then you definitely do also want to have that wallet configuration file, which has some of the supporting details. If it's the case that you have to somehow recreate this multisig, perhaps in a different software other than Nunchuk, wallet configuration file is going to include information that will sort of maximize the compatibility and maximize the likelihood that you can recreate that multisig elsewhere. So important note there on backups, but with all of that, let's go ahead and conclude today's video. All right, so there you have it. We took a look today at Nunchuk, and I must say my expectations were high coming into this, and I am pleased to say that they have fully been met, and perhaps then some. In addition to having a really robust set of functionality, and again, as I mentioned at the outset, these guys are clearly pushing out new features, new support for NFC and different things like that. So in addition to just a really, really solid offering in its own right, you also have what I think is this highly differentiated feature, which is this end-to-end encrypted chat system that allows participants from wherever in the world on whatever device to collaboratively form multi-sig wallets. That is a big deal instead of mucking around with something like Electrum, although I will always love Electrum, but Nunchuk has made it way easier. But I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Nunchuk? Have you given it a try yourself? Again, keep in mind it is still early days. But from what I saw in my personal experience, this is a pretty robust product and offering. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments down below. But I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like. Use the share feature underneath this video. That really does help the algorithm these days, and get this in front of more people. I think this is a really valuable tool for everyone to be aware of. And if you found so much value and you want to support a pleb, I will include my Lightning address and Strike account at the end of the video. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave all this here. As a reminder, every sat counts, especially if it's secured in a multi-sig vault. And until next time, I'll see you then.